She thought she had escaped. She thought she was untouchable today. She is rotting in a federal prison cell for 25 years. My son is free, but the price was high. She kissed him at the airport. She handed him a gift. And 5 minutes later, she watched from the shadows as the police put him in handcuffs for her crimes. She called him a lovesick fool. She thought I was just a weak, grieving grandmother. She was wrong because she made one fatal mistake. She left a locked drawer in her office. And inside that drawer, ... She left the one thing that could destroy her. She didn't know that while she was running away, ... I was hunting her down. This is not just a story of betrayal. This is a story of total revenge. Watch until the end. Justice has never tasted this sweet. Ma, look at me. Where is the woman who was standing beside you? The question didn't sound like a question. It sounded like an accusation. It cut through the chaos of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport like a razor blade. I blinked. My mind was still somewhere else. My mind was still floating in a cloud of joy, anticipating the hug I had waited 365 days to give. I looked up. The security guard was too close. He wasn't one of the regular airport staff who lazily direct traffic or tell you to take off your shoes. His uniform was darker, sharper. There was no boredom in his eyes, only a cold, predatory focus. "Excuse me," I stammered. The noise of the terminal seemed to drop away, replaced by the sudden thumping rhythm of my own heart. "The woman," he repeated. His voice was flat, mechanical. She was wearing a gray trench coat, large sunglasses. She was holding your arm a moment ago. Where is she? I felt a sudden, irrational spike of fear. Not for me, but for her? You mean my daughter-in-law? Nia Amani. I pointed a trembling finger toward the corridor behind us. She wasn't feeling well. She went to the restroom. She'll be back in a minute. We are waiting for my son. The guard didn't look at the restroom. He didn't look at the corridor. He pressed 2 fingers to the earpiece coiled behind his ear. He didn't speak to me anymore. He spoke to the air. Target has separated from the subjects. She is not in the restroom. Repeat, she is moving toward the north exit. Target, subjects. The words hit me like physical blows. Before I could ask what was happening, a burst of static erupted from the radio clipped to his shoulder. A voice, distorted but terrifyingly urgent, crackled back. She's running. Team G, cut off the perimeter. Do not let her reach the parking structure. Close it down. Running. Nia Imani never ran. Nia. Imani was poise. She was grace. She was the woman who glided through life in Italian leather heels and perfectly tailored silk. She didn't run, but the guard was already moving. He stepped back, his hand hovering near his belt. His eyes scanned the crowd, looking for threats I couldn't see. Stay here, he ordered. It wasn't a suggestion. Do not move. I stood there, paralyzed. My feet felt like they had been poured into the concrete floor. I looked down at my hands. I was gripping the cardboard sign we had made. The night before, it was a simple poster. Board, white, covered in glitter and crooked letters. Welcome home, Daddy, my grandson Jelani. Had spent hours on it. He had chosen the brightest markers. He had glued the sequins on one by one with his tiny, concentrated fingers. Now the sign trembled in my hands. The glitter caught the harsh fluorescent lights of the terminal, sparkling mockingly. I looked down at Jelani. He was 5 years old. He was wearing his best Sunday shirt, the one with the little bow tie that made him look like a miniature version of his father. He was looking up at the guard with wide, confused eyes. Grandma, he whispered. His voice was small, fragile. Is the policeman mad at us? I tried to force a smile. I tried to summon the strength that grandmothers are supposed to have, the strength to hide the storm. No, baby, I lied. My voice sounded thin. It's just a mistake. Mommy will be right back. But deep in my gut, a cold stone of dread was forming, because I realized something. Nia hadn't just gone to the restroom. I replayed the last 10 minutes in my head, the way she had checked her watch. Not once, but 10 times in 5 minutes. The way her leg bounced nervously. While we waited near the baggage claim, I had thought it was excitement. I had thought she was just as eager to see her husband as I was to see my son. But it wasn't excitement. It was fear. She had been sweating. I remembered the scent of her perfume, expensive, floral, usually overwhelming. But today, under the perfume, there was the sharp, metallic smell of anxiety. "Mama Eudora," she had said, her voice tight. "Take Jelani's hand, please. Hold him tight." I had thought it was a mother's affection now, standing under the cold gaze of airport security. I realized it was a goodbye. I fumbled for my phone. My fingers felt numb, clumsy, like sausages. I dialed her number. I pressed the phone to my ear, praying to hear her voice, praying to hear her laugh and say, "Oh, Mama, I just got lost. I'm coming." Ring, ring, click. "The subscriber you are calling is not available, ... The automated voice was a death sentence. She had turned it off. Panic began to rise in my throat. Tasting like bile. The atmosphere in the arrivals hall shifted. It happens fast. You don't notice it until you are in the center of it. Asterisk, the low hum of conversations stopped. People started to back away. They created a circle of empty space around me and Jelani. They looked at us, not with sympathy, but with suspicion. What had we done? Why were 6 uniformed officers now jogging toward us from the left wing? Why were they shouting into their radios? "Grandma, you're hurting me," Jelani whimpered. I looked down. I was squeezing his small hand so hard my knuckles were white. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry." I loosened my grip, but I pulled him closer to my leg. I wanted to cover his eyes. I wanted to shield him from the world that was rapidly tilting on its axis. And then, the sound I had been dreaming of for 12 months. Bing, bong. The announcement system echoed through the vaulted ceiling. British Airways flight 294 from London Heathrow has landed. Passengers are now arriving at Gate B. My heart split in two. One half was terrified, watching the security team swarm toward the exit where my daughter-in-law had fled. The other half leaped with a mother's instinct. Kwesi. My son. He was here. I looked toward the frosted glass doors of the International Arrivals Gate. They slid open with a soft hiss. A stream of passengers began to pour out, businessmen in rumpled suits, families dragging enormous suitcases, students with backpacks, and there he was. Kwesi Vance. My boy. He looked thinner than I remembered. His face was tanned, lines of exhaustion around his eyes from a year of hard labor overseas. But when he saw us, exhaustion vanished. His face lit up like a sunrise. That smile. The smile that had gotten him out of trouble in high school. The smile that made everyone trust him instantly. He dropped his carry-on bag. He didn't care about it. He raised both arms in the air, open wide. "Mama." "Jelani," he shouted. His voice boomed over the crowd. Pure, unfiltered joy. He didn't see the guards. He didn't see the perimeter forming. He didn't see that his wife wasn't there. He only saw us. He started to run toward us. He was closing the distance. 50 feet. 40 feet. He was looking at the glittery sign in my hand. He was laughing. "I'm home," he yelled. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell, "Run, Kwesi. Run the other way." But my voice was frozen. I saw the men in the dark suits stepping out from behind the pillars. They weren't looking at the fleeing wife anymore. They were looking at him. They moved in perfect unison, like a pack of wolves that had been waiting for the lamb to wander into the clearing. Kwesi slowed down. He saw the look on my face. He saw the tears that were now streaming down my cheeks. He saw that Nia wasn't there. His smile faltered. It flickered and died, replaced by a look of utter confusion. He said he was close now, only 10 feet away. "Where is Nia? What's wrong?" He took one more step, and the trap snapped shut. A heavy hand clamped onto his shoulder. Another hand grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind his back with practiced brutality. The gift bag he was holding, a colorful bag with a red bow. Probably chocolates for his wife or a toy for his son, slipped. From his fingers, it hit the polished floor. Crash. The sound of glass breaking echoed through the silent terminal. Perfume. It was perfume. The smell of lavender and alcohol exploded into the air, mixing with the smell of fear. Quasi-Vance? A voice barked. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. Get on the ground. Do it now. My son looked at me. His eyes were wide, terrified, innocent. Mama. He cried out. Help me. The welcome home sign slipped from my fingers. It fluttered to the floor, landing face down in the puddle of spilled perfume. The glitter smeared into a gray, muddy mess. The reunion was over. The nightmare had just begun. 2 hands. Heavy. Rough. They landed on my son's shoulders like lead weights. The momentum of his run. The run of a father rushing to hug his child was killed instantly. He jerked back. His shoes squeaked violently against the polished linoleum floor. Quasi-Vance. The officer didn't wait for an answer. He didn't ask for ID. He didn't ask for cooperation. He kicked Quesi's legs apart. Hands behind your back. Stop resisting. Resisting. My son wasn't resisting. He was frozen. He was a statue carved out of pure shock. His eyes were locked on mine. They were wide, glistening, pleading. Mama, he whispered. The word barely came out. Eyes, is this a prank? Is this for TV? He tried to turn his head. He tried to look for the cameras. He tried to find the joke, but there were no cameras. Not the TV kind. There were only the cold, unblinking eyes of the agents surrounding him. And then came the sound. Click. Click. It is a sound you never forget. Dry, mechanical. Final. The sound of steel teeth biting into my son's wrists. It echoed in the sudden silence of the terminal. It was louder than the announcements, louder than the airplanes taxiing outside. That sound severed his life in two. Before the click, he was a free man, a father, a husband. After the click, he was a number, a suspect, a criminal. The gift bag he was holding, the one with the red bow, slipped from his paralyzed fingers. It hit the ground in slow motion. I heard the sickening crunch of glass. Shattering inside the paper, a liquid began to seep through the bottom of the bag, dark, spreading across the white tiles. And then the smell hit me. Gardenias. It was Nia Imani's favorite. Scent, expensive, sweet, overpowering. The sickly sweet aroma of crushed flowers mixed with the smell of industrial floor wax and fear. It made my stomach turn. I wanted to vomit. What are you doing? I finally screamed. My voice tore through my throat, raw and burning. I stepped forward. I didn't care about the perimeter. I didn't care about the badges. That was my baby. He'd just got off a plane. He's a carpenter. You have the wrong man. A wall of black fabric blocked my path. Another officer, huge, impassive. He put a hand on my chest and pushed me back. Not gently. Step back, ma'am, or you will be detained for obstruction. Obstruction? I pointed at Quesi. He was now on his knees, head bowed, the officers patting him down roughly. They were pulling his wallet from his pocket. His passport. The photos of Jelani he kept in his shirt. He hasn't done anything, I cried. He's been working in London. He sends money home. He's a good man. The lead agent, a man with gray hair and eyes like ice, turned to me. He held up a plastic bag. Inside was Quesi's passport. Mrs. Vance, he said. His voice was bored, routine. Your son is under arrest pursuant to a federal indictment. He paused, letting the words hang in the perfumed air. Money laundering. Wire fraud. Conspiracy to commit theft against vulnerable persons. The words floated around me. I heard them, but I couldn't understand them. Money laundering? Quesi didn't know how to launder a shirt, let alone money. Quesi used cash. He didn't trust banking apps. He kept his savings in a jar in the kitchen. "You're crazy," I whispered. "You are all crazy." "Get him up," the agent ordered Dot. They hauled Kwesi to his feet. He stumbled. He looked small between them. He looked at me one last time. "Mama," he choked out. Tears were streaming down his face now. "Find Naya. Tell Naya to bring the papers. She knows. She knows I didn't do anything. It's her business account. Tell her to explain. Tell Naya." The words were a knife in my gut. He still didn't know. He thought his wife was in the bathroom. He thought she was just late. He didn't know she was running toward the north exit. He didn't know she had turned off her phone. He didn't know that the business account he was talking about was the reason the handcuffs were on his wrists. "Daddy." The scream came from my leg. Jelani. I had forgotten. God help me. In the panic, I had forgotten he was watching. The boy broke free from my grip. He ran toward his father. "Daddy, don't take him." "Daddy, no." Jelani, I lunged for him, but it was too late. The child latched onto the officer's leg. He was hitting the thick tactical pants with his tiny fists, sobbing, screaming. "Bad man, let my daddy go." The scene broke whatever composure was left in the airport. People were gasping. I saw phones raised, dozens of them. The black eyes of cameras recording my family's destruction for the internet to see. Kwesi saw his son fighting for him, and that was what broke him. He let out a sound that wasn't human. A deep, guttural wail of pure agony. "Don't look, son. Jelani, go to Grandma. Don't look at me like this." The officer gently but firmly peeled Jelani's fingers off his leg. He pushed the boy back toward me. I caught him. I fell to my knees and wrapped my arms around him, burying his face in my coat so he wouldn't see them dragging his father away. "Move out," the agent commanded. They began to march Kwesi toward the exit. Not the passenger exit, the side exit. The one with the gray steel doors that lead to holding cells and police vans. I watched his back. His shirt was untucked. His shoulders were slumped. He looked back over his shoulder, searching. He wasn't looking at me. He was scanning the crowd desperately. He was looking for the woman in the gray trench coat. He was looking for his savior. He didn't know he was looking for his executioner. The steel doors swallowed him. Bang. They closed with a heavy thud. And just like that, he was gone. The crowd began to disperse. The show was over. The excitement was done. They went back to their phones, back to their coffees, back to their lives. I was left kneeling on the floor, holding a weeping child, surrounded by the smell of spilled gardenia perfume and the glitter from the welcome home sign, now turned to gray sludge, sticking to my knees. I tried to stand up. My legs were shaking so bad I almost fell again. I had to be strong. "For Jelani, I whispered, stroking his hair. We're going to fix it." I pulled out my phone again. My hands were trembling violently. I didn't call Nia. I knew she wouldn't answer. I called Verna, my cousin, the only family I had left in Atlanta. "Verna," I croaked when she answered. "Come to the airport. Bring the car, Eudora. You sound terrible. Is the flight delayed?" "No," I said. My voice sounded dead, like it belonged to a ghost. "They took him, Verna. They took Kwesi. Who took him? The hospital? The police?" Silence on the other end. "I need you to take Jelani," I said. "I have to go to the station. I have to find out why my son is going to prison for a business he doesn't even own." I looked down at the broken perfume bottle. A piece of the label was visible among the shards. La Mung Song, that was the brand name. I felt a chill run down my spine. That had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Lay, Mensonge. It's French. I used to be a literature teacher. I knew what it meant. It meant the lie. Nia Imani had bought a perfume called The Lie to give to her husband on the day she framed him. The irony tasted like ash in my mouth. I stood up. I wiped the tears from my face. I wiped the glitter from my skirt. The weeping grandmother was gone. She died the moment those handcuffs clicked. Now, only the mother remained. And as I walked toward the exit, dragging my feet, holding my grandson's hand, I made a promise to the empty air. I wasn't just going to get my son back. I was going to find the woman who bought that perfume, and I was going to make her pay for every single drop of tears my son was shedding right now. But first, I had to face the detectives. I had to hear the evidence. I had to know exactly how deep the knife was buried in my son's back. The automatic doors opened. The humid Atlanta air hit me. It smelled of rain. A storm was coming, good dot, because I was bringing one to dot the interrogation. Room door was a slab of gray steel dot. It hadn't opened for 3 hours. I sat on a hard plastic chair in the hallway. The air smelled of stale coffee and industrial disinfectant. A cold chemical smell that coated the back of my throat. Next to me, an old vending machine hummed. A low electric buzz. Z-Z-Z-Z-Z-Z. Z-Z-Z-Z-Z. Izzy-Z-Z-Z. .E. It was the only sound in the world. My grandson, Jelani, had finally fallen asleep in my lap. His tear-stained cheek was pressed against my coat. His breathing was hitched, interrupted by small, leftover sobs. I stroked his hair, but my mind wasn't in the police station. My mind was traveling back in time. It was sifting through the last 12 months. Like a detective looking for a murder weapon in a field of flowers, I was looking for the signs, and God help me. They were everywhere. I had just chosen not to see them. I closed my eyes. The fluorescent lights of the precinct faded. I saw my kitchen. I saw Nia Imani. She was standing by the stove, stirring a pot of stew. The steam curled around her face. She looked like an angel. That was the mask she wore. The angel, the devoted wife, the martyr who was holding the family together while her husband toiled overseas. "Mama Eudora," she would say, her voice dripping with honey. "You sit down. You've done enough. Let me pamper you." And I let her. I was an old woman, lonely, missing my son. I wanted to believe that this beautiful, capable woman loved us. But love doesn't buy $3,000 handbags on a crafter's salary. The memory shifted. It sharpened. 6 months ago, it was a Tuesday. I remembered because the trash truck was grinding its gears outside. Naya had come home with a shopping bag. It wasn't plastic. It was thick, textured paper with gold handles. She pulled out a scarf. "It's for you." Mama, she beamed it around my neck. It felt like cool water against my skin. Silk, pure. Heavy silk. I looked at the pattern, intricate, hand-painted. I looked at the label. I gasped. This scarf cost more than my monthly pension check. "Nia," I had whispered, touching the fabric with trembling fingers. This is too much. How can we afford this? Kwesi is working double shifts just to pay the mortgage." She didn't blink. Her smile didn't falter. Not for a microsecond. "Oh, Mama, stop worrying." She laughed. A light tinkling sound. "My online store is exploding. I sold 50 custom vases to a boutique in New York. It's a bonus. You deserve it." A bonus. I wanted to believe her, so I stroked the silk. And I swallowed the doubt. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "Artisans don't make this kind of money overnight." I pushed the voice down. I drowned it in gratitude. I was a coward. Another memory pushed its way forward. Darker this time. 3 months ago, it was night. 2 a.m. insomnia is the curse of the elderly. The house is too quiet. The shadows are too long. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling fan. Tick, tick, tick. Then I heard it dot. The soft sliding sound of the glass door to the balcony. Whoosh! It was barely audible. I sat up. I reached for my glasses. I crept to my bedroom door and cracked it open just an inch. A sliver of moonlight fell across the hallway. Naya was out there. On the balcony, it was freezing outside. She was wearing only a thin robe. She had her phone pressed to her ear. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't using her angel voice. Her voice was low, hard. It sounded like stones grinding together. "I told you," she hissed. "The transfer needs to be split. Anything over 10,000 triggers a flag." "Are you stupid?" I held my breath. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Triggers a flag. That wasn't artisan talk. That wasn't pottery talk. "Kino," she continued. The wind blew, carrying her voice toward me. "The package from Detroit is secure, but we need to clean the rest before the end of the month. Clean package. I stood there, barefoot on the cold floorboards. I should have walked out. I should have opened the door and asked, "Who are you talking to? What package?" But I didn't. I was afraid. I was afraid of shattering the peace. I was afraid she would get angry. I was afraid she would take Jelani and leave, so I closed my door. I went back to bed and I lay there, shivering, telling myself lies. Maybe package means a shipment of clay. Maybe clean means organizing the inventory. I polished the lie until it shined. Until I could look at myself in the mirror the next morning, the memories came faster now, like a dam breaking. The sunglasses she claimed were a knockoff, but had the weight of real gold. The mysterious business trips to Miami that lasted 3 days. The way she never, ever let Kwesi see the bank statements. "I handle the finances, baby. You just work. I'll build our future." She was building a future, all right. But not for us. And then, the worst memory of all. The one that made bile rise in my throat right there in the police station. It was the watering can 1 month ago. A sunny afternoon, I was watering the geraniums near her home office. She always kept the door locked. My creative space, she called it. But that day the door was ajar. Just a crack. I stopped pouring the water. I heard her typing. Fast, furious typing. And then she spoke. "No, absolutely not. You can't use my account. It's too risky. I have eyes on me." A pause. Then she said the words that would haunt me until my dying day. "Use Kwesi's account. He's in London. He won't find out. The money will look cleaner that way. Use Kwesi's account. Cleaner. The water from my can spilled onto the floor. It made a splashing sound. Inside the room, the typing stopped instantly. "Hello?" Naya called out. Her voice was sharp, dangerous. I froze. I backed away. I tiptoed down the hall, heart racing. Terrified of being caught, I ran to the kitchen and started washing dishes, making noise, pretending I had been there the whole time when she came out 5 minutes later. She looked at me with suspicion. "Did you hear anything, Mama?" "No, dear," I lied. I forced a smile. "Just the radio." She stared at me. Her eyes were like black glass, searching for a crack in my armor. Then she smiled. The mask slid back into place. "Okay, I'm going to make tea." I sat in the police station hallway, tears leaking from my closed eyes. I knew she was using him. I knew she was setting him up, but I didn't want to believe it. I loved the idea of her too much. I loved the idea of a happy family too much. I traded my son's freedom for a silk scarf and a quiet life. I was an accomplice. My silence was the weapon she used to slit his throat. "Mrs. Vance." The voice jerked me back to the present. The gray steel door opened. A man stepped out. He wasn't a uniformed officer. He was wearing a cheap suit that had seen better days. His tie was loose, but his eyes were tired and filled with a terrible kind of pity. This wasn't the booking officer. This was a detective. He held a thick file folder in his hand. It was red. Red meant high priority. Red meant serious crimes. He looked at me, then down at the sleeping boy in my lap. "I need you to come with me," he said softly. "We need to show you something." I stood up. My knees popped. I shifted Jelani to my shoulder, his heavy, sleeping weight a comfort and a burden. I walked toward the open door, toward the truth. I knew what was coming. My flashbacks were over. The reality was about to begin, and I had a feeling that the clean money Nia talked about was going to be the dirtiest thing I had ever seen. The paper on the detective's desk wasn't a list, it was a web, a chaotic, tangled spiderweb of black lines and red boxes. Detective Thorne didn't speak. He simply pointed a thick finger at the very center of the page. Right? In the middle of the chaos, there was one name, Kwesi Vance. "Look at this, Mrs. Vance," Thorne said. His voice was heavy, like he was reading a eulogy. "This isn't just a bank account. It is a hub." I leaned forward. My glasses slid down my nose. I tried to make sense of the diagram. Arrows pointed out for my son's name like spikes on a virus. They pointed to boxes labeled Panama, Cayman Islands, Zurich. "It's $2 million, Thorne said. The number hit me in the chest. "Excuse me?" In the last 14 months, he continued, flipping a page in the thick file. "Counts registered to your son received over $2 million. And within minutes of receipt, that money was wired offshore." I shook my head. A nervous, hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. $2 million. I looked at him. "Detective, my son drives a 2015 Ford truck with a dent in the bumper. He patches his own work boots with duct tape. If he had $2 million, I think I would know." Thorne didn't smile. He opened another folder. This one was thinner. It contained photocopies of documents, contracts, bank authorizations, incorporation papers for companies with names I couldn't pronounce. "We know he didn't spend it," Thorne said. "He moved it. He cleaned it. That's what money launderers do. They are ghosts. My son is not a ghost." I slammed my hand on the metal table. It stung. "He is a carpenter. He works with wood. He doesn't know anything about international wire transfers." Thorne sighed. He slid a piece of paper toward me. It was a scan of a signature card for a bank in Miami. "Is that his signature?" I looked down. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say it was a forgery, a fake, a trick. But I couldn't lie. I knew that signature better than my own. I had watched him practice it when he was a teenager, trying to make it look grown up. I had watched him sign his marriage license with that. Same flourish on the K, the loop on the V, the slant to the right. It was Kwesi. "Yes," I whispered. "The word tasted like poison," Mrs. Vance Thorne said gently. "We have 50 documents just like this one. Opening accounts, authorizing transfers, granting power of attorney." Kay leaned back in his chair. The springs squeaked. "To a jury, this doesn't look like a carpenter. This looks like a CEO of a criminal enterprise." And the woman, Nia Imani. He tapped the table. "Her name isn't on a single piece of paper. Not one." The room spun. Nia hadn't just framed him. She had erased herself. She was the wind. And my son was the tree that caught the storm. The next 48 hours were a blur of rejection. I left the police station with a copy of the indictment and a heart full of desperate hope. I thought, I just need a good lawyer. A lawyer will see the truth. I was wrong. I went to the office of Mr. Sterling first. He was the best defense attorney in Atlanta. His office smelled of mahogany and expensive leather, the kind of smell that screams power. He offered me water in a crystal glass. He listened to my story. He nodded sympathetically. Then he opened the file Detective Thorne had given me. He put on his reading glasses. He read the first page. Then the second. His eyebrows pulled together. He didn't read the third page. He closed the folder. "Mrs. Vance," he said. His voice had lost its warmth. "I cannot take this case." "Why?" I begged. "I have savings. I can take out a second mortgage." "It's not about the money," he said. He pushed the folder back across the polished desk. "It's the evidence." But he didn't know. I cried. She tricked him. Mr. Sterling took off his glasses. He looked at me with pity. "In the eyes of the law, ignorance is not a defense when you sign your name 50 times. It's called willful blindness. A jury will look at a grown man who signed documents moving millions of dollars. And they won't see a victim." He paused. They will see an accomplice who got caught. I walked out of his office feeling like I had been punched. I went to a second firm. Then a third. The answers were all the same. Different offices. Different lawyers. Same rejection. The paper trail is too deep. His signature is everywhere. It's a suicide mission. One young lawyer, a man with sharp eyes and a hungry look, was brutally honest. Mrs. Vance, he told me, leaning over his cheap metal desk, your daughter-in-law is a genius. Evil, but a genius. He tapped the photocopy of Quessie's signature. She found the perfect scapegoat. Someone who loved her enough to trust her blindly. Someone who wouldn't read the fine print because he was looking at her eyes. He shook his head. It's not just a suspect. He's the shield she used to protect herself. And now the police are going to smash the shield to pieces because they can't find the person holding it. I walked home in the rain. I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't care. The water mixed with the tears on my face. I entered the house. It was silent. Jelani was with my cousin Verna. The house felt like a tomb. I walked into the living room. I sat on the sofa where Quessie used to sit. I looked at the coffee table there. Was a magazine there? Home and Garden. NIA had bought it. I picked it up. Inside there was a sticky note on a page showing a luxury villa in the south of France, in her neat, looping handwriting she had written one day. I crushed the paper in my hand. One day, she had been planning this while she sat next to us at dinner. She had been planning this while she kissed my son goodbye at the airport a year ago. Every phone call, every I love you, every trust me, baby. It was all groundwork. She was laying the bricks of his prison cell one by one, and my son, my poor, sweet, foolish son, he was just the pen she used to write her own paycheck. He was a lovesick fool, and because he loved her, he was going to die in a cage. I looked at the list of lawyers in my notebook. Every single name was crossed out with angry red ink. I had run out of options. I had run out of hope. I dropped the notebook on the floor. Thud. I put my head in my hands. I'm sorry. Quessie, I whispered to the empty room. I failed you. The silence of the house pressed down on me, heavy, suffocating it. Felt like the end. And then ding dash dong. The doorbell rang. It wasn't the frantic ringing of a neighbor. It was sharp, precise, authoritative. I lifted my head. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I dragged myself to the door. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to hide. But something, maybe a mother's instinct, maybe just fate, pulled me forward. I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door. Standing on my porch, illuminated by the yellow street lamp, was a woman. She wasn't wearing a uniform. She was wearing jeans and a leather jacket. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. But her eyes caught me. They weren't looking at me with pity. They were looking at me with fire. Mrs. Eudora Vance, she asked. Her voice was like gravel and honey. Yes. She held up a badge. Not a regular police badge. This one was silver. And it had a symbol I didn't recognize immediately. My name is Detective Zuri Banks, she said. I work cybercrimes. She took a step closer. The rain drummed on her jacket. And I know for a fact that your son is too stupid to steal $2 million. She didn't smile. May I come in? I stared at her. For the first time in 48 hours. I felt my heart beat. This wasn't a lawyer who cared about signatures. This was a hunter. And she was looking for the same prey I was. The woman standing on my porch didn't look like a savior. She looked like a storm. Rain dripped from the hem of her leather jacket, pooling on my welcome mat. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and absolutely fearless. May I come in? She repeated. I stepped back. I didn't have the energy to refuse. She walked past me. The smell of cold rain and ozone followed her into the warm, stagnant air of my house. She didn't wipe her boots. She didn't apologize for the intrusion. She walked straight into the living room and stopped. Her gaze landed on the coffee table, on the cardboard sign. Jelani had made "Welcome Home, Daddy." The glitter was still shedding onto the tablecloth. A sad, sparkling mess. Detective Zuri Banks stared at it for a long time. Her face softened. "Just a fraction," he made that. She asked. Her voice was low. "Yes," I whispered. "For the father who never came home." Zuri turned to me. The softness vanished. The steel returned. "Mrs. Vance, sit down." It was an order, not a request. I sat on the edge of the sofa. My hands were clasped so tightly in my lap that my fingers hurt. Zuri remained standing. She paced. 4 steps to the window, 4 steps back. She moved like a cat, silent, lethal. "I'm not here officially," she began. She pulled a small notebook from her jacket pocket. "If my captain knew I was here, he would suspend me. He thinks this case is closed." Wrapped up with a nice bow, she scoffed. A harsh sound. "He sees a signature on a bank document and calls it a confession. I call it a setup." My heart skipped a beat. You believe he's innocent?" Zuri stopped pacing. She looked me dead in the eye. "I work cybercrimes, Mrs. Vance. I track ghosts. I hunt people who steal millions without ever leaving their bedrooms." She tapped her temple. "The people I hunt, they are smart. They are paranoid. They don't sign their real names on federal documents. They don't walk into banks with their own faces exposed." She leaned in close. "They use shields. They find someone clean, someone trusting, someone with no criminal record and, forgive me, no financial sense." She let the words hang there. "Your son isn't a mastermind. I checked his background. He's a carpenter. He pays his taxes late. He has a library card." She shook her head. "Masterminds don't have library cards. Patsies do." Patsy Dot, the word was ugly, but it sounded like salvation. "So, I breathed. Naya did this." Zuri's eyes narrowed. "I've been tracking a ring operating out of the southeast for 2 years. They target the elderly, the lonely. They bleed them dry." She flipped open her notebook. "We call the leader the architect. We never get a name, never get a face. Just IP addresses that bounce from Russia to Brazil." She looked around the room. Her eyes scanned the expensive vases, the designer throw pillows, the art on the walls that Naya had bought. "I think the architect has been living in your spare bedroom?" I felt a chill. That went down to my marrow. I looked at the hallway leading to the back of the house. To the office. "She played a long game," Zuri said. "She married him. She built a life. She waited until the trust was absolute. Then she handed him the pen." Zuri put the notebook away. "But here's the problem, Mrs. Vance. My gut feeling doesn't stand up in court. Your belief in your son doesn't stand up in court." She crossed her arms. "We need dirt. We need a mistake. And people like Nia Imani, they are arrogant. They think they are smarter than everyone else." She walked over to me and crouched down. She was eye level with me now. She ran because she got spooked. She left in a hurry. And when people rush, they leave things behind. She pointed toward the hallway. "Where did she work? Where was her cave?" "The office," I whispered. "At the end of the hall, but it's locked. She always kept it locked. She said it was for her focus." Zuri stood up. A small, grim smile touched her lips. "Locked doors are just invitations to people like me." She reached into her bag that she pulled out a small leather kit. It unrolled with a soft THWACK dot. Inside were tools. Thin silver picks. Tension wrenches. "I can't get a warrant," she said. "A judge won't sign it. The evidence against your son is too strong. So we have to do this the hard way." She looked at me. "I need your permission. As the homeowner. If we find nothing, I was never here. If we find something, we might just save your son's life." I looked at this stranger, this woman with rain in her hair and fire in her eyes. The lawyers had turned me away. The police had laughed at me. The world had labeled my son a criminal, but she hadn't. She was the only person in the world who saw the truth. I stood up. My legs didn't shake this time. I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was hot, sharp. It burned away the fear. It burned away the sadness. All that was left was anger and determination. Save him, I said. My voice was steady. Tear this house apart if you have to. Just find it. Zuri nodded. Show me the door. We walked down the hallway. The floorboards creaked under our feet. The sound echoed in the silence. It felt like we were walking into a graveyard. We reached the heavy oak door at the end of the hall. It was imposing. Dark wood, a brass knob that shone dully in the dim light. I had passed this door 1,000 times. I had heard her typing behind it. I had heard her laughing on the phone. I had respected this door. I had feared it now. I wanted to kick it down. I tried the knob. Locked tight. She has the only key. I said, not anymore. Zuri murmured. She knelt on the floor. She selected 2 tools from her kit. She slid the tension wrench into the bottom of the keyhole. Then she inserted the pick. She closed her eyes. She tilted her head, listening. Click, scrape, click. The sounds were tiny, but in the quiet house they sounded like gunshots. I held my breath. My hands were sweating. Come on, Zuri whispered to the lock. Talk to me. She twisted her wrist. Gentle. Precise. Ca-chunk. The deadbolt slid back. The sound was heavy, satisfying. Zuri stood up. She put the tools away. She looked at me. Are you ready to see who she really is? I nodded. I reached out. My hand touched the cold brass knob. I turned it. The door swung open with a long, protesting groan. A rush of cold air hit our faces. It smelled of ozone and new electronics, and that sickening, sweet gardenia perfume. It was the smell of the enemy. Zuri stepped across the threshold. I followed her into the dark, and what we saw inside made my blood run cold. The room was freezing, unnaturally cold. It didn't smell like the rest of my house. My house smelled of cinnamon, floor wax, and life. This room smelled of static electricity and secrets. Nia Imani called this her creative studio. But standing in the doorway, shivering, I realized it wasn't a studio. It was a command center. The blinds were drawn tight. Blackout curtains blocked every ray of sunlight. One wall was covered in bookshelves. But the books weren't for reading. They were arranged by color. White, gray, black. Perfectly aligned. Not a millimeter out of place. It looked sterile, like a hospital operating room. Or a morgue. Don't touch anything with your bare hands, Zuri whispered. She pulled a pair of blue latex gloves from her pocket and handed them to me. I snapped them on. The rubber felt tight against my skin. You need to be systematic, Zuri said. Her voice was barely a breath. Start with the shelves. Look for anything that doesn't belong. I'll take the desk. I walked to the shelves. My legs felt heavy, like I was wading through water. I pulled down a book on modern art. Okay, nothing inside. I checked a vase, empty. Behind me. I heard the soft swish slide of drawers opening. Zuri was moving fast, methodical. First, drawer pens, notepads. Second, drawer files, tax returns for her artisan. Business, all fake. All perfect facades. Mrs. Vance, Zuri said. Her voice had changed. It was sharper. Come here. I turned. Zuri was kneeling in front of the massive mahogany desk. She had the bottom drawer pulled out all the way. It looked empty. Just a few paper clips and a lonely stapler. But Zuri wasn't looking at the contents. She was tapping the bottom of the drawer. Thud, thud, thud. The sound was dull. Heavy? Hear that? She asked. It sounds solid, I said. Exactly, Zuri said. A drawer this deep should sound hollow, unless there is something underneath. She pulled a thin, flat tool from her boot. A knife. She slid the blade into the microscopic gap between the drawer bottom and the sidewood. She twisted. Creaked. The false bottom popped up. My breath hitched in my throat underneath the wood. Nestled in a cutout of dark foam was a bag. It wasn't a bank bag. It wasn't a briefcase. It was a black velvet pouch. The kind you use for expensive jewelry. Zuri lifted it out. It was heavy. The contents clinked together softly. She placed it on the desk. The sound was muffled by the velvet. This is it, she whispered. She loosened the drawstrings. She turned the bag over. The contents spilled out onto the polished wood. It wasn't jewelry. It was tech. 5 cell phones. Cheap ones. The kind you buy at a gas station for $20, Furnace Sari said. Disgust dripped from the word. Untraceable, disposable. Drug dealers use these. Terrorists use these. She picked one up. It was labeled with a piece of masking tape. Germany. She picked up another. France. She has a phone for every time zone, Zuri said. She was running an international call center from your spare room. But there was something else in the bag. A notebook. Small black leather. Worn at the edges. I reached for it. My gloved hand trembled. I opened the cover. The handwriting inside was elegant. Beautiful loops and curls. Nia's handwriting. But the words were a nightmare. It was a list. Names, ages, amounts. I read the first line. Elsa Schmidt, Berlin, age 82, widow, Alzheimer's, early stages. Next to it, a number. $45,000. I read the next. Jean-Pierre Logan Lyon. Age 79. Lives alone. Lonely. $120,000. I felt the room spin. These weren't customers. They were victims. Nia had profiled them. She had written down their weaknesses. Alzheimer's single quotes as lonely blind. She hunted the weak. She hunted the people who couldn't fight back. Look at the dates, Zuri said, pointing to the column on the right. I looked. The dates went back 3 years, long before she married Kwesi, long before she met us. She didn't stumble into this, Zuri said coldly. She is a predator, a professional. She targets the vulnerable, drains them dry, and moves on. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. It was hot and angry. My son, I whispered. She targeted him too. Yes, Zuri said, because he was clean. He was the perfect mask. I turned the page and a photo fell out. It fluttered to the desk. Landing face up. That wasn't a picture of an old person. It was a picture of a man. He was standing next to Nia. They were at a bar, toasting with champagne glasses. Nia was laughing, her head thrown back in pure wicked joy. The man was tall, broad shoulders, but it was his face that made me freeze. Running down his right cheek, from his eye to his jaw, was a scar. Thick, jagged, ugly. It looked like a map of violence, Zuri hissed. A sharp intake of breath, she snatched the photo. I know him, she said. Her voice was tight. That's Darius Mitchell, also known as Scar. He's an enforcer, a muscle man for the cartel. She looked at me. Her eyes were wide. Mrs. Vance, your daughter-in-law isn't just a scammer. She held up the photo of the scarred man. She's in bed with killers. Suddenly, the silence of the house felt heavy, dangerous. We weren't just looking at fraud anymore. We were looking at organized crime and the man in the photo. The man with the scar? I had a terrible, sinking feeling that I had seen him before. Lurking near the house, watching, Mrs. Opaline, my neighbor, the sweet old lady who lived next door. She told me she saw a man watching our house last week. She said he had a mark on his face. Oh, God. We have to go, Zuri said, shoving the evidence into an evidence bag. Now, this house isn't safe. But before we could move, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from Mrs. Opaline Eudora. Are you home? I need to tell you something. I saw the man again. The one with the scar. He's talking to Nia. My blood turned to ice. Nia wasn't just talking to him, she was giving orders. And Mrs. Opaline ... my sweet, innocent neighbor. She had just seen too much. I stared at the phone screen. The text message glowed in the dim. Light of the hallway, I saw the man with the scar. Mrs. Opaline, by neighbor of 20 years. The woman who baked blueberry muffins for the church sale. The woman who knitted socks for Jelani every winter. She wasn't just a neighbor. Anymore, she was a witness. And in the world of Darius Mitchell, witnesses don't retire, they disappear. I have to get her, I told Ziri. My voice was tight. She knows. She saw them together. I didn't wait for permission. I didn't wait for backup. I ran out of the house. I crossed the lawn that separated our properties. The grass was wet with dew. It soaked my slippers. Mrs. Opaline was on her porch. She was holding a watering can. She looked small, frail, like a dried flower that could crumble in the wind. Eudora, she asked, putting the can down. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, I gasped. I grabbed her hands. They were cold. Parchment skin over brittle bone. Opaline, the man you saw. The one with the scar. Are you sure? She nodded. Her eyes were clear. Sure as I am standing here. I heard them, Eudora. 2 weeks ago. By the gate. She leaned in close. She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I heard Naya say something strange. She handed him an envelope. She said, "The widow from Detroit is clean." My heart stopped. The widow.clean. It wasn't code. It was a status report. It meant she had been drained dry. It matched the notebook in the black bag perfectly. Opaline, I said, squeezing her hands. You have to tell the police. That man is a criminal. Naya is. Naya is one of them. She didn't hesitate. Not for a second. For Kwesi. She asked, I'll tell them everything. I hurried her to my car. An old sedan. Safe, reliable, or so I thought. I helped her into the passenger seat. She buckled her seatbelt with shaky hands. Never been to a police station before, she said nervously. We'll be okay, I promised. You are saving my son's life. I started the engine. We pulled out onto the main road. The streetlights were flickering on. Amber pools in the gathering dark. I drove with one hand. With the other, I tried to call Zuri again. Ring, ring, no answer. Just a little further. I told Opaline we turned onto the avenue. It was quiet. To quiet, and then it happened. From a side street, a shape emerged, massive. White, a truck. It didn't have headlights on. It was a ghost machine. It didn't slow down at the stop sign. It accelerated. I heard the engine roar. A deep mechanical growl. I turned my head. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the grill of the truck. It looked like a set of iron teeth. I saw the driver. I couldn't see his face. But I saw the intent. He wasn't trying to swerve. He was aiming Eudora. Opaline screamed. It was a high, terrified sound that ripped through the air. I slammed on the brakes, but physics doesn't care about. Intentions. Crunch. The sound of metal screaming against metal is hideous. It sounds like the earth splitting open. The world turned upside down. Glass shattered. It rained down on us like diamonds. The smell of burning rubber. The smell of gasoline. The acrid, dusty taste of the airbag exploding in my face. Darkness absolute. Crushing darkness. Beep. The sound was rhythmic. Annoying. Tried to push it away. I opened my eyes. White. Light. Blinding. The smell of antiseptic. Sharp. Clean. It burned my nose. I was in a bed. There were tubes in my arm. My head throbbed. A drumbeat of pain behind my eyes. Mrs. Vance. I turned my head. It felt heavy, like a stone. Detective Zuri was standing there. But she wasn't the fierce warrior from my office. She looked defeated. Her uniform was wrinkled. Her eyes were red. Where ... I tried to speak. My throat was sandpaper. Where's Opaline? Zuri looked away. She looked at the floor tiles. The truck hit the passenger side, she said softly. Direct impact. Double quotes. Silence. The machine. Beep, beep. She didn't make it, Eudora. The words didn't make sense, didn't make it. Mrs. Opaline. The woman who knitted socks. The woman who was afraid of police stations. Dead because of me. Because I asked her to be brave. I felt a scream building in my chest. A scream of grief. Of guilt. The driver, I rasped. He ran, Zuri said. Her voice hardened. But he left tracks. We found the rental agreement. Fake ID. But the credit card left a digital footprint. She stepped closer to the bed. It was Darius Mitchell. The man with the scar. She put a hand on my shoulder. They didn't just want to scare her, Eudora. They wanted to silence her. I closed my eyes. I saw Opaline's face. I saw the watering can on the porch. I felt the tears come. Hot and fast, but beneath the tears, something else was waking up. Something cold. Something hard. Naya Imani. Hadn't just stolen money. She hadn't just framed my son. She had murdered my friend. This wasn't a legal battle anymore. This was war. I looked at Zuri. Get me out of this bed. I said, Eudora, you have a concussion. I don't care, I hissed. Get me out. We are going to find him. And then we are going to find her. And when we do, Zuri asked. I looked at the ceiling. I imagined Nia's face. When we do, I said, I'm going to make sure the world hears the scream she tried to silence. Zuri nodded. I found his location, she whispered. Get dressed. The interrogation room was a box of silence. No windows, no air. Just for gray walls and a mirror that watched everything. Darius Mitchell sat on the metal chair. He looked exactly like the photo in the black bag. The scar on his cheek was jagged. A map of a violent life. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't sweating. He was bored. He leaned back, testing the strength of the handcuffs chained to the table. Clink, clink. 'Twas an accident, he repeated. His voice was gravel. I told you. I was driving. The old lady pulled out. I panicked. I ran. That's it. Vehicular manslaughter. I'll do my 3 years. Key smiled. A cold, arrogant smirk. He thought he knew the game. He thought he was just a driver, involved in a hit and run. He didn't know who Zuri Banks was, and he didn't know what we had found in the drawer. Zuri didn't yell. She didn't slam her fist on the table. She didn't even sit. Done. She walked around him. Slowly, the heels of her boots clicked on the concrete floor. Dot, click, click. She stopped in front of him. She was holding a manila. Envelope 3 years, Zuri mused. That sounds nice. 3 years for an accident. She opened the envelope. She pulled out a photograph. She placed it on the metal table. Face up. It wasn't a crime scene photo. It wasn't a picture of a wrecked car. It was a picture of an old woman sitting in a garden holding a cat. This is Elsa Schmidt, Zuri said softly. 82 years old. Lived in Berlin. Darius didn't look. He stared at the wall. I don't know her, he grunted. She died last week, Zuri continued. Not from a car accident. She died of hypothermia. Because she couldn't afford heating oil. Because someone drained her pension account to zero. Zuri placed another photo down. Slapped out a man. Elderly. Wearing a military uniform from 50 years ago. He took his own life 3 months ago. He left a note. He said he felt ashamed. He said he had been tricked by a woman who promised him love. Darius's jaw tightened. A small muscle jumped in his cheek. Fraud isn't my department, he muttered. I'm just a driver. Zuri leaned in. Close. She dropped the third photo. It was Mrs. Opaline. She was smiling, holding a tray of blueberry muffins, standing on her porch, the same porch where Darius had watched her. And this, Zuri whispered, this is Opaline Chesterton. Darius flinched. Just a millimeter. But Zuri saw it. She wasn't a client. She wasn't a mark. She was a witness. Zuri's voice dropped. It became freezing cold. You didn't hit her car by accident, Darius. You waited. You accelerated. You aimed. Prove it, he spat. I don't have to, Zuri said. Because I found the notebook. The silence in the room changed. It got heavy. Suffocating, Darius's eyes flicked to Zuri's face. "The notebook in Nia's office," Zuri said. "The one that lists every payment, every job, and every hit." She pulled out a photocopy of a page. She tapped a line with her fingernail. "The widow from Detroit, clean." "Mrs. Oberlin wasn't from Detroit," Zuri said. "That was your code. But clean. We know what clean means in your world. It means eliminated." Zuri straightened up. She looked down at him like he was something she had stepped in. "Here is the math, Darius. Listen carefully. If you stick to your story, we charge you with first-degree premeditated murder. We have the witness testimony from Eudora Vance. We have the digital footprint of you stalking the house. That is a death penalty case in Georgia." Darius swallowed. His throat clicked. But Zuri said, "If you give us the architect, if you give us Nia Imani, we drop the murder charge to manslaughter. You cooperate, you live." Darius looked at the photos. He looked at the faces of the people whose lives he had helped destroy. He wasn't looking at victims anymore. He was looking at his own coffin. He knew Nia Imani. He knew she would cut him loose to save herself. He was just a tool to her, like the burner phones. Disposable. The stone statue began to crack. He licked his lips. They were dry. "She has insurance," he croaked. "What?" Zuri asked. "Shh, Nia," he whispered. "She's paranoid. She doesn't trust anyone. Not even me." He looked up. His eyes were desperate now. "She keeps a drive. An external hard drive. It's encrypted. She calls it her life insurance." "What's on it?" "Everything," Darius said. "Recordings. Phone calls. The wire transfers. She recorded every conversation with her bosses. She recorded every conversation with her husband." My heart hammered in my chest as I watched from behind the one-way. Mirror. Recordings. If she recorded her conversations with Kwesi, she would have recorded her lies. She would have recorded herself tricking him. That was the proof. That was the Holy Grail. "Where is she, Darius?" Zuri asked. "Where's the drive?" Darius shook his head. She went dark. "But she has a safe house. A cabin. Up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. She said if things ever got too hot, that's where she would go to burn everything." Burn everything. Panic surged through me. If she destroyed that drive, my son's freedom would turn to ash. Zuri didn't waste a second. She turned and walked out of the interrogation room. She burst into the observation room where I was standing. "Did you hear that?" she asked. "We have to go," I said. Before she lights the match, Zuri grabbed her radio. "Dispatch. This is Detective Banks. I need a SWAT team. Location, Blue Ridge Sector 4. We have a fugitive, and she is armed and dangerous." The hunt was on, but we were racing against time. Nia Imani was cornered, and cornered snakes bite. The forest was pitch black. The only light came from the surveillance van hidden in the tree line. Inside, it smelled of stale coffee, ozone, and high-tension sweat. Banks of monitors glowed with a ghostly blue light. Technicians sat in swivel chairs, their faces illuminated by scrolling, code and thermal images. Click, clack. The sound of typing was the only noise. I sat in the corner. My hands were wrapped around a paper cup of water that had gone warm an hour ago. I was shivering, not from cold, from anticipation. Detective Zuri stood behind the lead technician. "Do we have a signal?" she whispered. "Acquiring now," the tech replied. She just powered on a device. "It's bouncing off the tower in the valley. We are intercepting." Zuri turned to me. She held out a pair of heavy, noise-canceling headphones. "Mrs. Vance," she said. Her face was grim. "You need to identify the voice. We need confirmation before we breach." I took the headphones. They felt heavy on my ears. Like a helmet. At first, there was only static hiss. Pop hiss, like the sound of rain on a tin roof. Then, ... A voice cut through the noise. Clear, sharp. "I don't care that they picked him up. Darius was a liability anyway." My breath caught in my throat. It was her. It wasn't the soft, respectful voice of the daughter-in-law who baked cookies. It wasn't the sweet voice that called me mama. It was cold, hard, metallic dot. It was the voice of a stranger, wearing my daughter-in-law's skin. I whispered. Zuri nodded. She pressed a finger to her lips. Listen. On the recording, a male voice responded, distorted, deep. But the husband, the Vance guy, if he talks, the whole network collapses. Nia laughed. It was a cruel, ugly sound. A dry cackle that made the hair on my arms stand up. Kwesi. She scoffed. Don't make me laugh. He won't talk. Why not? The man asked. He's facing 20 years. Because Nia said, her voice dripping with venomous arrogance, he is a lovesick fool. The words hit me like a slap in the face. Lovesick fool? I gripped the edge of the console. My knuckles turned white. He worships the ground I walk on, she continued. I could stab him in the chest and he would apologize for getting blood on my dress. She paused. I could hear the sound of ice clinking in a glass. She was drinking, celebrating. All I had to do was squeeze out a few fake tears. Tell him I was stressed about the business. He signed those papers without reading a single word. She sighed, a sound of pure satisfaction. He thinks he is a martyr. He thinks he is protecting his fragile, innocent wife. So he takes the fall. The man asked. He takes the fall, Nia confirmed. He rots in prison, and I disappear with the drive. The money is already in the Caymans. I win. And the old woman? The man asked. The mother. I held my breath, Eudora. Nia snorted. She's a senile old bat. She spends her days gardening and knitting. She doesn't have the spine to fight back. She'll just cry and die of a broken heart. Senile old bat. No spine. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was quiet. It was the sound of the last thread of mercy breaking. For weeks, I had felt sadness. I had felt grief. I had felt fear. But now, sitting in that dark van, listening to this monster mock my son's love, I felt only fire. My son wasn't a fool. He was a good man, a man who loved with his whole heart, and she had weaponized that goodness. She had turned his best quality into his cage, and she thought I was weak. She thought I was just a gardener. She forgot one thing. Gardeners know how to pull weeds. I took off the headphones. I placed them gently on the console. I looked up at Detective Zuri. My eyes were dry. My hands were steady. That's her, I said. My voice was low, dangerous. Zuri looked at me. She saw the change. She saw that the grieving mother was gone. The matriarch had arrived. She nodded. A slow, respectful nod. She turned to the SWAT commander standing by the door. He was dressed in full tactical gear. Black helmet. Body armor. Rifle across his chest. We have positive ID, Zuri said. Target is confirmed alone. She has the drive. The commander tapped his earpiece. For all units. This is Sierra 1. Target acquired. On the main screen, I saw the thermal feed from the drone hovering above the cabin. I saw heat signatures moving through the trees. Dozen of them, ghosts in the dark. They were moving fast, closing the circle. Breach on my command, the commander whispered. Zuri put a hand on my shoulder. Do you want to wait here, Mrs. Vance? I looked at the screen. I saw the silhouette of Nia walking past a window inside the cabin. She was holding a drink, oblivious. I said, I want to watch. Want to see the moment she realizes that the lovesick fool and the senile old bat just ended her life. Zuri signaled the team. Execute. On the screen, the shadows surged forward. The front door of the cabin exploded inward. Boom! Even through the monitor. The flashbang was blinding. And then the screams began. But this time, they weren't my son's screams. They were hers. The courtroom smelled of mahogany, polish, and old dust. It was a heavy smell. The smell of judgment. The air conditioner hummed. a low, vibrating drone that rattled the nerves. I sat in the front row. My hands were folded in my lap. They were calm. Next to me sat Kwesi. He looked different. The prison pallor was gone, but the boyish innocence was gone too. He wore a dark suit. He sat straight. His jaw was set like granite. He wasn't the lovesick fool anymore. He was a survivor. On the other side of the aisle. Saturday, Naya Amani, she wore a gray prison jumpsuit. It hung loosely on her frame, but her head was held high. She scanned the room with a look of utter disdain, as if we were all beneath her, as if this trial was just a minor inconvenience in her grand plan. She looked at me. She smirked, a tiny, razor-sharp lifting of her lip. She thought she still had an ace up her sleeve. She thought her high-priced defense lawyer could twist the narrative, but she didn't know. What was in the evidence box sitting on the prosecutor's table? The judge entered. A woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many lies. Our eyes. We stood. The wood of the benches creaked. The trial moved fast. Nia's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim. A misunderstood entrepreneur coerced by bad men. It was a good performance. But then the prosecutor stood up. "Your Honor," he said, his voice ringing in the silence. "The state would like to introduce Exhibit G, the insurance drive." Nia's smirk vanished. For the first time, I saw true fear in her eyes. It flickered like a candle in a draft. The prosecutor pressed a button. The audio filled the room. It was crisp, clear. The speakers amplified every breath. "He is a lovesick fool. I could stab him in the chest and he would apologize for getting blood on my dress." The courtroom gasped. The jury stared at the speakers, horrified. "She's a senile old bat. She'll just cry and die of a broken heart." Nia sank into her chair. She looked small now. The arrogance evaporated, leaving only a hollow shell. Kwesi didn't look at the speakers. He looked at her. He watched the woman he had loved destroy herself with her own words. The jury didn't need long. They came back in 2 hours. The foreman stood up. "We find the defendant, Naya Amani Vance, guilty on all counts." Guilty. The word hung in the air. Sweet, heavy, final. Wire fraud, money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. The judge looked down at Naya. "Mrs. Vance," the judge said. Her voice was ice. "You preyed on the vulnerable. You betrayed the sacred trust of marriage. You are a predator." Naya tried to speak. She tried to stand. "Sit down." The bailiff barked. "I sentence you to 25 years in a federal penitentiary. No possibility of parole for 20 years. Bang! The gavel fell. It sounded like a gunshot. It was the end of the chapter. 2 bailiffs moved in. They pulled Naya to her feet. She looked back. She looked at Kwesi. Her eyes were wild, desperate. "Kwesi." She screamed. "Baby, help me. It was just talk. I love you." Kwesi stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He looked her in the eye. "The lovesick fool is dead," he said softly. He turned his back on her. He walked out of the courtroom. He didn't look back as they dragged her away. Her screams echoing down the marble hallway, till the heavy doors swallowed them whole. We sold the house in Atlanta 3 weeks later. We couldn't stay there. The walls whispered. The floorboards remembered her footsteps. The smell of gardenia perfume seemed to cling to the curtains. No matter how much I washed them, we left everything behind. The furniture, the rugs, the memories. We packed only our clothes and the photos of Jela and I. We drove east, toward the ocean. We needed salt. We needed wind. We needed a horizon that didn't end in a prison wall. We found a small town in the Carolina, a place where the moss hangs from the oak trees and the air. Smells of brine and sweet tea. We bought a small cottage. White wood. Sky blue shutters. And in the garden. Hydrangeas. Blue and purple. No gardenias. Never again. I used the rest of my savings. I did something reckless. Something wonderful. I leased a small storefront on Main Street. I called it Serenity Suites. Because after the storm, serenity was the only thing we craved. My life has a new rhythm. Okay? It is a good rhythm. I wake up at 4 a.m. The town is asleep. The ocean is just a dark murmur in the distance. I go to the bakery. I tie on my apron. I plunge my hands into the flour. It is cool, soft. I knead the dough. Push, pull, fold. It is therapy with every loaf of bread. I work out a little bit of the anger with every tray of cinnamon rolls. I let go of a little bit of the pain. The smell of yeast and melted butter fills the air. It pushes out the memory of the antiseptic hospital room. Kwesi found peace too. He didn't go back to Hyries construction. He didn't want the stress. He works at a small furniture shop by the harbor. He restores antiques. He sands down old, scarred wood. He varnishes it. He makes it beautiful again, just like he is doing with his own heart. Every afternoon at 4:30 sharp, he picks up Jelani from school. I watch them sometimes. They walk down to the beach, DALAN. I runs into the surf, chasing the seagulls. Kwesi walks behind him, his hands in his pockets, watching his son with a fierce, protective love. One evening, last Sunday, I was closing up the shop. The bell above the door jingled. I wiped my hands on a towel. Sorry, we're closed. I stopped standing there in a floral sundress, holding a box. Was Zuri. She looked different without the gun. Without the badge, she looked younger. I heard the blueberry muffins are legendary. She smiled. I ran from behind the counter. I hugged her. She smelled of sunshine and soap. We sat in the garden behind the bakery. We watched the sunset paint the sky in orange and purple. She gave Jelani the box. It was a model pirate ship. To the bravest boy I know, she told him. Jelani's eyes went wide. He ran off to sail it in the fountain. Zuri sipped her coffee. She looked at me. You saved him, Eudora, she said quietly. You know that, right? We saved him, I corrected. She shook her head. No, I just opened the lock. You were the one who walked through the fire. She touched my hand. Most people, they close their eyes when they see red flags. They choose comfort over truth. But you didn't. You are a warrior. I looked at my son, laughing on the grass with his boy. I looked at the bakery I had built from the ashes of my old life. I thought about trust. I used to think trust was a soft thing, a warm blanket. I was wrong. Trust is a weapon. You have to be careful who you give it to, because in the wrong hands it can kill you, but in the right hands, it can heal you. The sun dipped below the horizon. The first stars appeared. The nightmare was over. The long dark night of the cell and the silence was gone. We were safe. We were together, and as the ocean breeze blew through the garden, carrying the scent of salt and sugar, I finally took a deep breath and I let it go. Thank you for watching this story of justice and survival. Where are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments below if you believe that truth always comes to light. Please like this video and subscribe. It helps us bring more stories like this to you. And remember, always trust your instincts. They are the only warning system you have. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.